Klimakonferenz geht jeden an.
The climate conference is relevant to anyone who cares about the future. For example, people with children should be concerned about what will be happening in 50 or 100 years' time. Also, with our lifestyle, we are all partly responsible for climate change.
Jeder Mensch trägt auf seine Weise dazu bei durch Emissionen.
Everybody contributes through emissions, as we all use energy, and everyone will be affected by climate change. Some more and some less so. The difference between rich and poor, industrial and developing countries, is one of the greatest challenges to climate politics.
Hier gibt es keinen automatischen Determinismus in dem Sinne, dass jeder, der vom
There is no automatic determinism in the sense that not everyone affected by climate change will become a refugee. So it's difficult to calculate the number of people in question and the number of people who are fleeing or migrating. One has to differentiate between forced migration, which can be called fleeing, and voluntary migration, because one wants a better life as one's own situation has got worse. It is never environmental change alone that causes migration, but a complex mix of reasons.
I think the UN negotiations is a driver for sure of the climate protection. We're talking about 196 countries with very different characteristics, size, development goals. So they got a chance to put all of them together talking about this problem, which is a global problem. So I think the UN negotiations are indeed a contributor to mitigate the problem for sure.
I think the problem of climate change needs global cooperation because unlike other problems of, say, local pollution, where the country itself or a small region can take care by certain laws and policies and they can try to minimize or reduce that pollution, the problem here is that it doesn't matter if one country decides to completely shut off their pollutions. If the other countries don't do it, everyone will be commonly affected. This whole idea of going into a common future is very much there in the climate change debate.
Die Wissenschaft kann sicherlich zunächst mal dazu beitragen, indem sie
Science can contribute by following climate change closely and predicting its development through data and models.
Dann auch wer davon betroffen ist.
Who and which parts of the world will be affected by it? Who is generating the most emissions? There is a need to monitor emissions.
Der Emissionen. Und es kann aber auch bei der Entwicklung von Lösungskonzepten.
It can also contribute by developing concepts for solutions and alternatives to resource and emission-intensive industries.
Intensiven Wirtschaft einen Beitrag leisten, indem
with ideas for alternative technologies and ways of living that better suit the planet's resources.
Lebensweisen, die besser mit den Ressourcen des Planeten zurechtkommen.
Also vor allem diese Klimagipfel der UN.
Above all, these UN climate summits are a focus for media reports that put climate change in the spotlight worldwide. We call these global media events. They allow journalists to put the subject at the top of the news agenda and to give the people of the world a kind of global common experience so that they can do something about climate change together. The risk of this kind of reporting comes when expectations have been raised too high, as was the case at the Climate Summit in Copenhagen in 2009. There can be a lot of disappointment if nothing comes of a summit. The result was that for some years after, journalists in many kinds of media wrote almost nothing about climate change at all. And that is practically the greatest disaster, if attention is first focused on the subject, but afterwards there is no interest at all.
Ich hoffe schon, dass die Öffentlichkeit so weit mobilisiert werden kann.
I do hope that the general public can be mobilized so that pressure can be put on countries to do more than they may have otherwise.
Eigentlich getan hätten.
I would prefer not to say that Paris will really fail. I think we have out there good and bad points going on at the same time. So some suspect, for example, that Moscow may block an agreement. Climate financing, adaptation and mitigation activities in developing countries is also perceived as a problem. For instance, the president of France has stated that will be no agreement if the firms are not committed to finance adaptation activities in developing countries. So these are negative points, but at the same time, the Pope has delivered for the first time an encyclical about climate change. We got this historic agreement between China and the US, so I guess we have good and bad points going on at the same time. I would prefer to be by now optimistic.